dance performer while I go backstage and pray. He is contractually obligated to be here. The producers booked him. I don't really know him. Please welcome to the stage, Gregor of Berlin!
Have you tried this? It's unspeakable. Willkommen und guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Welcome and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Gregor of Berlin, and I'm here to entertain you. I'm here to entertain you under duress. Some of you who were unfortunate enough to attend last month's 10-foot rat cabaret of lies and deceits, and who inexplicably have returned for some pathologically masochistic reason to this month's 10-foot rat cabaret, will remember that I'm performing under duress. I signed a contract, I don't even remember doing so. The terms are quite unpleasant. I have been booked like a clown at a children's birthday party, and here I am. But entertain I shall. It was not always this way. Back in Berlin, I was the uncrowned king of theatrical entertainment. I was a god. I need a little something to help me tell this story. It's a symbolic, metaphorical, will help me enact the story in physical terms. Fortunately, I happen to have it on my person. Back in Berlin, you see, I had my own theater, my own theatrical troupe. This was in the days of the old chief inspector of the police. The old chief inspector was a horrid little man. Corrupt, vile, he had his thumb in every pie, prostitution, gambling, narcotics. Nothing happened in Berlin that he did not get a slice of. But then we found out we were to have a new chief inspector of the police. Chief Inspector Helmut Schmidt. Chief Inspector Helmut Schmidt was honest, incorruptible, dedicated. He could not be bribed or blackmailed. This was terrible for us. As I discovered when his police interrupted my show for the third time. For the third time, his constable stormed into the theater and tore me off the stage in the middle of a sentence so beautifully constructed that the audience was moved to tears. And for the third time, I sat in Chief Inspector Helmut Schmidt's interrogation chamber, peppered with his questions. My dear Chief Inspector, why have you interrupted my show for the third time? I think you are a bad influence on your audiences, Herr Gregor! You are a bad influence on society! That is a fascinating treatise, my dear Chief Inspector. When you publish, you really must mail me a copy. But please, why am I here? You are going to answer questions concerning the murder of a theater critic! A theater critic? My dear Chief Inspector, you must be more specific than that. This is Berlin. Critics are murdered on a weekly basis. Why, you of all people remember that not a fortnight ago, a dozen theater critics bobbed to the surface of the River Spree, found in their little burlap sacks. No doubt tormenting the other souls in the afterlife with an account of how clumsily their murders were staged. Sitting through it was like 2 hours of agony without an intermission. Please, be more specific. This critic gave you a terrible review, Herr Gregor! My dear Chief Inspector, if I went about killing everyone who misunderstood my art, the Roman Colosseum could not house the tangled corpses, skulls and limbs of critics, booking agents, and the bourgeois swine who go slumming in the theater district on Saturdays. But perhaps his name will ring a bell, Herr Gregor! His name was Gustav Schmidt! And I know you have killed him, I know it in my bones! Oh, you know it in your bones? My dear Chief Inspector, why did you not say so? I assumed that German criminology was based upon hard evidence and the scientific method. I did not realize that all it required for a conviction in a capital case was the great chief inspector to feel it in his bones. Tell me, what else do your bones tell you I have committed? There must be all sorts of malfeasances. An ocean liner has struck an iceberg. A train has derailed. A widow is missing her baguette. Quickly, check Herr Gregor's toaster for flaky crumbs. The Archduke has been shot. A world war has begun. It is Gregor who fired the shot. The art has become degenerate. The youth are running wild in the streets. The women are dancing to American jazz music. Gregor is destroying our civilization. I hear Herr Gregor is a cannibal. You know these artist types. Perhaps he took Gustav Schmidt and dipped him in egg, yolk, and crumbs and fried him up for a schnitzel. I will admit at this point that perhaps I went over the line a little with the schnitzel. In my haste, I failed to notice the glaring linguistic similarities between the names Gustav Schmidt and Henry Schmidt. I know what you're thinking. Schmidt is a very common surname. Perhaps it was a coincidence. Nein. They were brothers. And after generations of respectable army generals and chief inspectors, the Schmidt clan was a bit embarrassed to have a son who wished to be a theater critic. Rightfully so. But still, ancestry is a strong pull and the blood called out for vengeance. That is your problem, Herr Gregor. You're a bit too clever. For your own good, you're too in love with the sound of your own voice. Chief Inspector, I can hardly judge the sound of my own voice objectively. I leave that up to my audiences. Fortunately, they really seem to eat it up. Since that shall be your hell, you shall not speak anywhere, not on a park bench, not a beer hall or a wine cellar. No one will rent you theatrical space. And if anyone thinks that I am joking, whereupon he removed from its holster a rather elegant Luger pistol. For those of you unfamiliar with German small arms manufacture, a Luger is the type of gun most often held by the bad guys in your World War II movies. You remember. I could tell by its weight that it was fully loaded, and I could tell by the look in his eye that I'd better choose my next words rather carefully. My dear Chief Inspector, alone here in your ivory tower of fingerprint ink and secret death warrants, you're a bit isolated from the mood on the Berlin street and the mass psychology of its citizens. Let me explain something to you. The first time you had my show interrupted and me taken into custody, the audience was a rather well-heeled sort. The type who liked to go slumming, exploring the demi-monde alternative theater, a little naughty thrill. After I was torn off the stage in the middle of the show, they left thinking, what could this humble poet have done to earn the enmity of our great Chief Inspector? Overnight it became de rigueur for them to drop bon mots from the mouth of that terrible Gregor at their glittering soirees and banquets. The second time you had me arrested, the audience was a more common sort, lower echelons of the socio-economic pyramid, if you will. They left thinking, well, if this Gregor has so irked the hated Chief Inspector, he must be one of us, he must be our man. And again, overnight, if you will, my name became a sort of mantra, a household saint to be spoken of in times of need or moments of passion. Immediately, every back-alley abortionist madam and gutter-snipe pickpocket bent over backwards to learn every word of my writing, even if the little boys were just combing the pamphlets for the dirty parts. This night, the third time you've taken me into custody, I cannot even imagine the glorious destruction that is happening in my name. I cannot imagine how far the virus is spreading by word of mouth, telegram, shortwave radio. Is it even stopping at the borders of Berlin, the fatherland, Europe, dare I say, the world? Please, do as you say. Have your men tear down my posters, place advertisements in all the newspapers that no one is to rent me theatrical space. Hell, you could discharge the contents of that pistol into my body, and the results will be exactly the same. From this moment forth, wherever you go, whether it is to take your lovely wife to the policeman's ball or your equally ravishing daughter to her ballet lessons. Whether you dined in a fine restaurant or dodged the blood at a boxing match, whether you were sweating out your manly sins in the sauna or accruing more sins, God knows where, the murmur you hear about you will be exactly the same. There goes the chief inspector, the one who elevated Gregor to Gregor the Eternal, Gregor the Great. And I left. It is a funny thing, those old precinct houses. They were built in the Middle Ages out of stone. Later on, all of the steel and glass was added. The acoustics are curious. One cannot tell whether a footfall is occurring a millimeter behind your head or 3 stories away. And so it was when the shot rang out that ended the sterling career of Chief Inspector Helmut Schmidt. I could not vouch whether I stood this close to him or several stories away. Fortunately, I had witnesses. Hundreds of witnesses, all walks of Berlin life, who crowded into the doorway of the precinct house as I made my exit, as the shot rang out. Such loyalty and dedication had to be rewarded in the only way I could. I finished my show.